Hi everyone, welcome to this breakout session. I can't sing and I can't dance and I'm not a comedy writer, but I'll try my best today to make this as entertaining as possible. If anyone jumps out and starts singing, I'm going to cry, so please don't. Cool, so today's session, risk of change versus fear of change and how that can shape your approach to social. There'll be a lot of me kind of echoing what you've heard today already and trying to make that make sense to you. But really all that means is just trying to identify when it is time to start making a change to your social strategy or processes in general. A little intro to the speakers today. So we've got Andrew Turton, he's a Senior Digital Comms Officer from West Mids Combined Authority, who will be talking shortly. And I am Sarah Bate. I'm a Senior Customer Success Manager here at Orlo. I primarily look after transport, healthcare, hospitality, finance, a wide range of sectors there, both public and private, but often with a very common theme of, having to handle that ever-changing market. There's usually regulations, committed obligations that lots of you are having to adhere to, and of course just trying to manage that brand reputation as well. So I'm hoping what you'll get from today is just lots of things that you actually have in common and hopefully some tips and takeaways as well. So for those that don't know Orlo, we're the UK's #1 social media management platform, a title we're very proud of, a title we've achieved by really putting a focus, as you've heard a lot today, on conversations. So whether that's a conversation you want to have to try and boost engagement, or even a conversation that end user needs to have to kind of solve something for you, we really try to champion that two-way communication, whether that be through social, live chat, SMS, lots and lots of things like that. And just to give you a taster of some of the customers we work with, a few of which will be in the room today, so hello, nice to see you. Cool, so risk of change versus fear of change. So what I wanted to look at here is so often we as humans, we really don't like change. And I think when we focus, particularly with those who work in comms, we always worry about and we talk about things that we really don't want to change and why we don't want to change them. And then we kind of leave it as that. Lots of time we don't then go, well, actually, what happens if we don't change? Do we ever consider that risk of if we don't change, what's going to happen next? But yeah, humans don't like change. It's risky. It often means taking that risk. It has an impact on your team. It has an impact on your business. And obviously, most importantly, it will have an impact on your customers. But when does it hold us back from actually building something more meaningful? So what I wanted to pull together here, so these are the top 10 things of social media challenges I've pulled from actually having conversations with many of you, scouring LinkedIn to see what other kind of professionals are talking about when they're struggling with social media challenges. So just to go through some of those, keeping up with social trends, they're so short-lived. Trying to make it relevant to you, that can be really, really challenging. Proving the value of social, often to execs, the budget holders, that can be really, really challenging still today. Low engagement rates and fewer post interactions. Again, thank you, Elon, and your algorithm. Standing out against competitors, juggling social media platforms, especially when a lot of those have to have their own kind of strategy in itself. Lack of comms between departments, running out of creative content ideas, responding to a crisis, doing that in the right way, in a timely way. Lack of growth, directional strategy, and actually hiring the talent to do all of that. So I guess just from a show of hands, does anybody kind of relate to some of those challenges within? Yeah. We're all the same. And obviously, overcoming challenges, it usually means we have to start doing something differently. Now, did I add a Barbie gift because I wanted to talk about Barbie, or does this actually have a point? Who knows? No. So, if you haven't seen the new Barbie film, I think we all still know Barbie. Very popular toy who had an awful downfall just based on, everything to do with body image, unrealistic expectations, and feminism in general. People just stopped liking what she stood for. So when they brought this film out, they really had to do something differently. And I think something really interesting to take away from that is they actually spoke about the negativity. They really owned what was happening and what was being said about Barbie in general, flipped that on its head, really decided to change what she represented. And now, obviously, she's everywhere again. And I know we've spoken about this already today, and I think it will be a theme you see throughout the day. What we have really tried to do is looking at the challenges I've mentioned, before there, engagement, demand, and trust really do summarize the challenges that we do have within social media. Driving that engagement, managing demand, and building the trust. But they're also the three things I think once we get them right, we are actually nailing social. And just before I give a bit of an intro into Hards, my head of product, a quick note on kind of how we're already adding value and how we are already trying to tackle some of those challenges with the Orlo platform. So being able to do things like identify trends and themes, social channel consolidation, cross-team collaboration, data analysis, automation with the human touch, and making it easy to engage in real time. They're all things that you can already do within the platform. So please do, ask questions today, speak to your CSM, speak to anyone at Orlo. We can definitely talk to you more about, any of those challenges you're having, how you can do some of these things to try and overcome them. Hards, I'll hand over to you.
At some point, marketing going to change that picture of me because I had hair once, I don't anymore, and it makes me sad. So, a bit of repetition here, as Sarah said, we are the UK's #1 social media management platform, and we're really proud of that because there are some Goliaths out there, particularly based in the States, who we compete with on a regular basis, and some of the feedback we often get and we're really positive about is the usability of the platform, and that's something I'm really proud of as well. So thank you all for your input, for helping us guide the product strategy and the roadmap as well. Repetition, but as Phil mentioned earlier today, and as Sarah just alluded on as well, we know that engagement, demand and trust are the biggest challenges faced by all sectors, not just public or private. Literally everybody struggles with these things. And one of the sort of hypotheses I came out earlier in the year was that if you can, engagement and demand are directly proportional to trust. If you can manage engagement in a really well way, in other words, communicate with the communities that you need to be engaging with to get their thoughts, opinions, fixing their issues, whether that's a certain demographic or person buying your product, is it a certain region of the country that's travelling on that train, whatever it may be. If you're talking to the right communities, actually listening to them and using that to guide your strategies, whether that be comm strategies, product strategies, whatever, you're definitely going to gain some of their trust because they'll believe that the decisions you're making are for their best interest. Similarly, managing demand is really difficult. And as we talk about introducing new channels, so whether that be live chat, WhatsApp is something that we've seen has grown quite a lot alongside the social channels as well. That means you're getting more contact. That means your people having to deal with a lot more, and it's really difficult. And if you can't manage that demand well, and you can't manage that demand in an effective way, in other words, answer it really quickly, but also give a response that is going to resolve an issue, people don't trust that you can do the job that you're there to do. And then again, that erodes trust. But if you do these really well, then people will trust you more. And something I only learned yesterday, actually, which was quite thought-provoking because I'm kind of sad, but trust isn't an emotion, it's actually a belief. If you trust someone, you believe that they're going to follow through on that thing that you're asking them to do. And I think that's really important to realise. We want to build trust in your communities through brilliant conversations by doing the following things. Improving engagement by being in contact with your entire communities, your customer bases, and allowing two-way dialogue wherever they happen to be. So, recently we announced our integration partnership with Nextdoor. Again, that's something we're really proud of. We're the first they want to work with. We're actually helping them develop their APIs. And the next few weeks, you'll be able to have that two-way dialogue. And they actually want to work not just with public sector organisations, but also with small businesses and people who work within particular communities. We need to make managing demand more cost-effective and time-efficient. If I look back at the three challenges we mentioned earlier, engagement, demand and trust, there's a third factor there, which is budget. And it doesn't matter what sector you're in, budgets are being squeezed left, right and centre. And if you rearrange the acronym of those letters, you get debt, but I don't think that's a positive thing. We also need to measure the levels of trust as well. It's all good and well saying you need to be trusted, but how do we know if you're trusted or not? And these measures don't just come from doing a feedback survey every now and then, it's also looking at consumer, customer, citizen behaviour as well. And finally, we need to gather and derive deep insight as well from the digital ecosystem to inform the decisions we make within our business. And what this means is not just social, it could be all different channels, analysing what's happening in the press, media as well, to make sure that we're coming up with comm strategies, we're coming up with product strategies or service strategies. We know that these are the things that the people we're doing it for actually want and need. This is quite neat, and I think this is something that we should all probably refer back to from time to time as well, is with this sort of social media maturity curve. And I think lots of people have versions of this. I think Gartner have a type of it as well, Forrester too. But what we typically see within our customer base is when we have to say immature sounds rude, but I don't mean that, but someone who's like a novice in social, first stepping out there as an organisation, they're typically interacting or connecting one of their social media channels and just posting content out. That's all they're doing. They're creating awareness, sharing information. As they move up the social media maturity curve, what we start to do is they're starting to manage demand now. This is where actually, you're putting content out there and inevitably you're going to create inbound contacts. Some of that will be a reply to a post, some of that will be shares, some of that will be a direct message where someone's going to need help as well. And this is where we start to see it not just being a marketing tool, but also a customer service tool as well, or a citizen service tool. And then finally, when we get to the more strategic players who are using social media, they're using both comms teams, marketing teams, customer service teams, and also the wider business are looking at social media to try and make those decisions. So this is where social media monitoring, social media listening comes into play, where you're trying to learn what's being said on Mumsnet, on the different forums and various social channels about you, your brand, the things that concern you, so you can then guide your strategy. And this is typically how we see our customers evolve as well as they move through the years. Engagement, in order to use Orlo to help you manage your or measure your engagement, there's a couple of things you could be doing. Firstly, by leveraging the marketing campaign analytics as well. So if you want to engage with an audience to share a post, get a click through, whatever it may be, you can use the marketing tools or the analytics tools to help you guide which posts previously helped you achieve those same goals. You could also, in the future, what we're looking at is identifying key influencers as well. So by the end of November, we will start hearing some work that we're doing around audience analysis. So what this will do, this will start to analyse the people who are actually engaging with you, the demographic they sit in, how much of the sense of the area that makes up as well, and who are the key people who are talking about you the most. And actually you can learn from them and help potentially leverage them, as we heard earlier from the Innocent presentation, about use your influencers, your advocates, to help you push your message across. And also, as I just mentioned there, we're going to break out your engaged audience as well. So those audiences, those demographics, you'll talk about you really positively, but also potentially really negatively as well. They could be those customers that will never buy from you again, potential churn, or spread that negative word of mouth, and how you can engage with them better as well and build comm strategies to support them. Demand is a really tricky thing to do because we all want more contact, but it's really difficult to manage. And like I said earlier, we've got budget restraints as well. It's like a triple-edged sword, I guess. It's really difficult. But through the various tools that within Orlo, we can do some clever things to help you. The first thing is work out through Orlo Insights what is actually causing contact. So if you know lots of people are contacting you about train strikes this week, maybe that's because you haven't actually shared the information that they need really well on socials already. So what social media posts can you put out there, or content can you put out there, or maybe just general digital ads to prevent any of that inbound contact, to take some of that load off your team. We also, through part of the tool called Triggers, allow you to route messages to particular people based on certain keywords, sentiment, or trends as well. I think that can be really powerful to make sure the right message gets the right person, so it gets dealt with more efficiently, stops it being passed around, and actually gets the message resolved really quickly as well. Within your teams that are responsible for responding, you also track team performance and user performance as well. So who's responding really well, who's a bit slow. And this isn't to like fire people necessarily, but also to say, right, we identify that these people need more support, more training, maybe we need to buddy them up with other parts of the team, performing really well. We can also alert you now to emerging trends as well. So if you have Orlo Insights, I promise this isn't meant to be a sales pitch, but if you have that part of the product, we can alert you to potential things that are occurring within the data that we're collecting that you may want to know about really quickly. The goal there is to stop something going viral, or stop something becoming a real big fire before you can get to it first. We also want to signpost your audiences to somewhere where they can self-serve. Most of us are like working in a digital era now. You've got a card here at the front. You can do pretty much everything yourself. You don't need to be talking to anybody anymore. Now, that sounds really cold, but if you want something done really quickly, do it yourself. And actually to educate people about what self-serve tools you've already got as well, to take some of the demand off you and actually serve your customers really well. And then finally as well, utilise things like chatbots. Sort of create some of that deflection as well. AI has come on vastly, like over the last couple of years. I mean, ChatGPT has definitely changed the game, but before that as well, AI was evolving really well. And to create chatbots to handle the 80% of contact that you get, which people are always asking the same stuff, to deflect a lot of that so that your most expensive resource, your people, are dealing with the stuff that is most important and the most valuable to you. And finally, trust. So this is like a sneak peek, I guess, into what's coming up. Towards the end of November, we'll be releasing this product most likely December. And these are these new visualizations or reports we're going to put in a platform around measuring trust. So using, again, AI and some algorithms that we've built, we'll be able to measure your trust on a scale of -100 to 100, sort of taking it from like the NPS notion, if you're familiar with it. Also tell you what the drivers are between what's driving positive trust and what's creating distrust as well. And you'll have to click through to all of these and understand what the drivers are, different demographics as well. The goal here is really to say, if you're doing things really well, what you aren't doing well, because if you create trust, you create really strong relationships with your customers. So that time when you've got to increase the prices for whatever reason, because we're all going to have to do that at some point, they'll trust you doing it for the right reason. They're going to want to work with you again in the future. And in terms of the roadmap themes that we're going to be working on, I've got 4 key pillars. Phil will talk more later about the more strategic vision for Orlo, like a 3-5 year plan. Right now, we're really focused on integrations with your existing systems as well to make it really easy. We know a lot of you have to jump between various different screens. You've got CRM systems, marketing tools, email systems, etc. We will make it really easy for you to access all that social data and that social contact and manage it within whichever tool you're working in currently. So right now, I think we integrate with Dynamics, Zendesk and Salesforce, but we'll also look at lots of other tools as well. This even includes integrating with tools like Canva, etc. as well, which I know some of our competitors do. In terms of dialogue here, this for us is about making sure that we can efficiently handle a lot of the dialogue. So AI is going to play a big factor in this. And when we talk about what we expect to see over the next year at Orlo, one of the big things we're going to introduce is more agent assist within that inbox as well. So you can help automatically respond to people and assist agents on what was a real helpful response last time that prevented recontacts. Orlo Insights is good. Effectively, we're going to become our reporting suite across the platform that will give you more insight into what's working well, what isn't doing well. And also within all that unstructured text, we'll be able to unsurface a lot of the customer emotions, themes, what they talk about more than they used to before, what they talk about less, what's causing the problems, what they're really happy about, and give you more insight about that. The goal for us there is we think that can sit alongside your voice of the customer, your voice of the citizen, voice of the employee campaigns as well, so you can have all that data to supplement it. And then finally, automation. I think that's going to play a massive factor in all parts of tech, not just social, but across the board as well. So how can we do things to better engage citizens, customers, but also deflect as much as possible as well, so we automatically respond to things, direct people to self-service tools, etc. That was my very quick 10-minute spiel. Has anybody got any questions on any of that? Yeah, hiya.
Just a quick one. You were talking about sentiment scoring, has your automatic sentiment scoring, has there been any work done to that? Because a lot of the time it can be wrong.
Yeah.
Positive message is negative.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a dark art, but sentiment analysis is really tricky, particularly when it comes to things like sarcasm detection, etc. as well. What we're trying to achieve, and this may sound a bit crazy, is 80% accuracy. So we want to be right 80% of the time, and that will give you the big picture. So if we know we're getting 20% slightly off, that's kind of like from a natural language processing perspective, we're quite confident with that. And actually we've benchmarked our tool against various other platforms as well. So directly with Microsoft Cognitive Services, Google's sentiment analysis tools as well. And we're very much on par with that. I wouldn't say like we're miles ahead, we're not miles behind, but we are meeting that benchmark. What's interesting, as much as I talked about AI and how well that's performing, machine learning is a technology that's used a lot within natural language processing. And that's still achieving only like 65% accuracy. And if you're at that level, you might as well just toss a coin and guess. However, we genuinely will welcome all that feedback. So if you have examples where it's definitely getting it wrong, feed that to us and we can retrain our models based on those as well. Okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
People tend to react, positively
To a negative thing, and therefore it seems negative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So ours is actually really quite.
What sector are you in? So what's the customer?
I work at the charity.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Which company is it? Sorry.
so Legal Sports.
Right.
It's a lot of it's a lot.
Yeah, it's like a double negative when we're analysing it. Yeah.
And I did speak actually to Mel, who was absolutely brilliant, and said that it might be a case of them manually doing it, but that is definitely an issue.
I can look at your use case separately because we've built a model based on generic conversation. But if it's a bit, I'll tell you one of the funniest things that you can ask her, what's working well? If you're in the survey, ask what's working well or what's not working well. Say what's not working well is staff. That's immediately negative. So it's like that double negative thing happens. So I'm more than happy to look at your data set and see if we can build a model that would work in that scenario. Because it's definitely, like I said, one of our themes is going to be on Orlo Insights, so we want that to work. Yeah. No worries. Any other questions before I dart off into the next section? No? I'm being blinded by these lights. All right, cool. All right, thank you very much. Pass back to Sarah.
Over here for 1 second, as I just wanted to introduce Andy. So Andy and the team have been doing a huge piece of work on actually kind of championing the change, acknowledging where change was needed and doing something about it. So hopefully you can really have some great learnings from this. So yeah, I'll hand over to Andy now.
Hi everyone. Sadly, there's very few pictures of me existing that have hair on now. So that one was actually from my wedding day, and I've probably got that fixed expression on my face now because I was full of nerves waiting for my wedding speech. So I'm probably the same today. But yeah, thank you for coming along today. Really appreciate it. Yeah, as it says up there, I'm the Senior Digital Comms Officer at West Midlands Combined Authority based in the city. Have been here just coming up to 2 years now. And we've been through quite a transformation as a department over the last few months in terms of a big restructure, but also sort of what we're looking at from our social media and our digital content perspective as well. So that's why I'm here today. Basically, just what it says on the tin. I'm part of the communications team covering digital content. There's about 10 or 12 of us in our digital team across paid and organic. We've got quite a wide remit also for working, doing graphic design and different elements of digital across our website as well. We've got, as I've said, quite a bigger enlarged communications team now of about 50. We've just gone through a big restructure, so that's really positive for us in terms of having the resource to deliver more on key projects and campaigns. It includes marketing and brand, our media team who deal with in and outbound sort of media inquiries and press releases. We have a stakeholder management team, and events and engagement alongside us as well. And then we have sort of separate teams that look after key brands such as Business Growth West Midlands, etc. as well. We also manage all the communications for all our brands across, obviously our core channel for the main CA, but also Transport for West Midlands and Business Growth, as I've said. And a little bit about me. I was actually, I'm not like some of you probably, I came into this from journalism. I was a journalist for about 12 years, 13 years. Really loved it, come straight out of uni. But worked for a very traditional newspaper where print was always first. And they had, certainly when I first started, limited sort of knowledge and enthusiasm towards working on digital. I think they had one person on the website that simply copied and pasted certain stories up there, and only then it was the first 4 paragraphs, and then it was a link at the bottom to where you could buy the paper from. So it was a real journey for them as an organisation. I worked in various different teams. I've become the deputy chief reporter. But then I moved into digital because it was my real passion. I was already experimenting with telling stories through Twitter, filming myself when I was out at events like election counts, etc. like that. And it was just really where I wanted my career to go. So I moved into that area and I was in charge of managing all our content on our website. So that was reproducing the stories that we had for print into digital content, also breaking stories that were coming in, and also digital-only content as well. So that was where I came from, and then I've graduated and moved through into digital comms and marketing from there, really. And like I said, been here about 2 years now. So a little bit about the CA, because I bet not many people know who we are, what we do. I get told all the time, "Oh, you just work for the council, don't you?" And it's a little bit different to that. It is basically set up in 2016, so we're a relatively young organisation still, formed of 18 local councils and 1 local enterprise partnership. We obviously, a lot of people may know of Andy Strick, the Mayor of the West Midlands. He leads our board, our West Midlands Combined Authority board, alongside the other council leaders. And he's kind of a bit of a figurehead for us. We obviously have our own chief executive as well, and our own executive board, but as a sort of public figure, it does tend to be Andy that drives a lot of what we do. That comes with some differences as well, because obviously there's sort of political agendas of what alongside what we can speak about as an organisation. So there's always a bit of a how we manage that a little bit is important. And we've recently had a lot more devolved powers from central government in areas such as transport, housing and skills. That's our main focuses. So obviously we run Transport for West Midlands, but we also have key projects around regenerating brownfield land and also upskilling the workforce through digital boot camps. And we did a big campaign and push through the Commonwealth Games of getting people into training opportunities that will give them jobs, not only for the Games, but also then after it as well. So yeah, a little bit about our digital comms team. So it's led by Amanda Smart, who's our strategic digital comms manager. There's a few strategy managers across different areas that I outlined before. As I said, there's 12 members of our team working across organic, paid and the website as well. We manage the website content, not the actual development of the infrastructure of the site itself. We have a web development team for that. But we manage all our digital channels and content across our brand websites. And that can be everything from content creation, writing, producing videos, photography at events, also implementing them, obviously scheduling through our content calendars and everything in between. So yeah, the biggest challenges we face, when I first come in and our team started to form, it was a really small digital team when we first started, and it was kind of split between marketing, but it's sort of been slightly pulled out so that digital is its own discipline a lot more now. But we didn't really have a clear social media strategy. We really struggled. Like a lot of organisations do, it was that one-way communication where you were simply putting out links to press releases with a picture and basically using the 2 or 3 lines off the top of the press release. But it really wasn't working for us. We had a very corporate tone of voice. Almost, obviously, when you use press releases or you take information from big reports that we have at committee meetings and everything, you're going to have that corporate tone where it just doesn't suit what we want it to be as an organisation. And as I said, we had a big reliance on press and media stories setting the agenda for what we did. We have a weekly grid meeting where we look through all our key stories that we're going to be discussing with the media and try and pitch to the media, and also try and put out ourselves. But that was setting the agenda so that daily all we were doing was kind of promoting our press releases, when actually we weren't, there wasn't any content that was existing within the channels itself. There's a bit of a culture of sort of just push it out on social, and I hated that phrase. It was kind of like, oh, just push that one out, or that's just a social post. And it was like, well, no, because this is your real chance to reach audiences that are, that we don't reach ordinarily through traditional media, that is ever decreasing anyway, especially in the West Midlands. And there was a lack of cohesion around the content style as well. We were using, or we do use a lot of third-party agencies and for graphic production and video production. We obviously trying to produce more and more as a team now, and we do have a design team that works with us a little bit as well in terms of creating some social content, but they're very much focused on print brochures and things like that, and also developing designs for new web pages and things as well. So we had a bit of inconsistency of what our content looked like. And really a big key one was brand awareness, lacking outside the mayor. I mean, us as a combined authority, we just didn't really punch through in terms of people knowing who we are on digital, where to follow us and what our accounts were actually going to be about. Obviously people had the mayor and they would follow the mayor, but the mayor's got his own political channels, of which he has them managed separately to ourselves. And then we have corporate mayoral channels as well. So his own channels do garner, a lot of engagement, but it isn't a space that we can be in because we have to be obviously straight down the line as a politically neutral organisation. Where there was a lack of consistent reporting and evaluation as well. It was typical because we're so rushed off our feet. You wasn't spending the time evaluating your content, whether it was working, whether it was performing as it should, why it wasn't. And it was a real thing that we've tried to build in over the last few months of what we've been doing. And also just an unclear management of brand channels. I mean, when we first come in, we found that a lot of teams had started up their own Twitter, started up their own LinkedIn, had their own YouTube channels, and they hadn't been through any branding process. They hadn't been it was unclear who managed them, who even had the passwords. So it was kind of, getting a bit of a steer on that and understanding and working with those teams to drive a bit of best practice was really key for us as well. So it was time for a change, but why? Obviously, we're an organisation that helps people, businesses and places, but rarely were those stories told by us. We were putting a press release out with maybe a real nugget of information, but you wouldn't have got that from a link and a generic view picture of some street where we were going to be building a new cycle route or anything like that. And equally, we weren't going out and speaking directly to the people who we work with at boot camps, why they found the courses interesting and what the benefits of working with us have been. So that was a kind of key one. And also authenticity. Our content wasn't engaging because this culture around driving traffic to press releases had sort of killed our authentic approach to speaking to our audiences. We didn't speak with a tone of voice that anyone in the Black Country where I'm from or Birmingham or anything would understand. It wasn't speaking how anyone would normally speak to a friend or that they went up to meet or someone in the pub or coffee. So we really needed to be more authentic and sort of get away from the corporate face of who we were. And we did some brand analysis, and only 55% of people knew that we even existed. 24% hadn't got a clue what we'd even did, even if they'd seen the logo around. And obviously there was sort of a big push. Transport for West Midlands is one of our, if not our key project. So people knew that we had some sort of involvement with public transport, but we're not an operator. We don't operate the buses. We don't operate trains in the area. We're a convener for people, and so people had a little bit of an inkling, but not really what the core values of us as an organisation. And it was not helpful for our behaviour change campaigns as well, and access to funding. We've got so many grants for community organisations to work on. We've got a big community green grants project where we've been funding community projects to really improve their parks and improve green spaces, and that's been transformed and is evolving over the next few months with funding that we've had from the Commonwealth Legacy Fund and through devolution as well. So it was not, people weren't coming to us and being aware of the funding support that we could offer as well, because we were seen as quite strategic and high level as an organisation. So how did we start? So we started with a complete social media channel audit and strategy workshop, brought in Comms 2.0, Darren, who I think will be speaking a bit later on today as well, and started last October. So it has been a really long process, really, that we're only just coming to the end to now. And that was really to just give us an honest ranking and an honest view of our channels, because we work on them every day, but we needed that outside person to say, well, look, you know, your tone of voice isn't right here, your content quality isn't right here, and it give it a ranking, gold, silver and bronze on what our channels were looking like. And it was, you know, I think we were honest enough as a team that we knew that there were issues, but it is helpful when you've got someone outside who comes in and sort of backs that up a little bit and helps you sort of discuss that. So we built up some examples of content that has worked and hasn't worked. That was across both our organic and our paid. So we've got good budgets for paid on certain for certain campaigns, and we had some successes, and we outsourced a lot of our media buying. But we wanted to sort of look at how we could best integrate the two so that they were working a little bit better between the two. So that was where we sort of now looking towards setting up regular reporting and our evaluation. So we've been doing this for a little while now. We have a weekly report where we look at our channels, how they've been performing, look at key content that's worked really well that week, what we can build on possibly for the following week as follow-ups. But we also have monthly channel reports now. So we have as it says at the bottom, channel managers, but throughout the team, each one looks after Facebook, looks after Twitter, looks after Instagram and so on and so forth, just to give that real focus for those individual channels, because we were as guilty as most for posting content across channels. You hit the button and away it goes on Orlo, you know, but equally that isn't obviously serving our audiences. We wanted to curate our audiences per channel so that we were really sort of building that engagement and building that community. So it was really key for us to look at those monthly channel reports and sort of start to build in a bit of a focus of how we were performing. We've unbelievably didn't really have a social media calendar when we first started, which some people, you know, you might be shocked at really, but as a team it was all about driving traffic through our press releases and getting out what needed to be put out that day. So we didn't really have an established content calendar, and that's something that we've worked on, obviously working on our awareness days and the areas that we can look at. And we now have a dedicated content planning group where we, aside from sort of the main news agenda about what's going on and what key projects that we've got to put out this week, about a big announcement that the mayor's going to cut the ribbon at some event, literally, you know, we're actually focusing our content planning group on what are the real fun things that are going on in the West Midlands at the moment, what are the real interesting conversations, what are the things that we can be talking about as an organisation ourselves, and that's been really helpful for us, because naturally we're all so busy, so it's so difficult to get that brainstorming time and that time to just really sort of take a minute and just think of what we could be doing a bit better. So that's actually encompassing the whole comms team, so we get input across the board, because we wanted that to be really a place where some of those teams get inspired and excited about digital content as well, because often everyone's like, oh, we don't know what to do, how do you put a tweet out, how do you upload a video to YouTube, this type of thing. But actually, if they've got some knowledge and some understanding and some enthusiasm behind what we're trying to do as a team, and hopefully it brings it all together as well. So we wrote this golden thread basically that's at the top of our social media strategy now. We make the West Midlands a better place to live and work. And essentially, it does what it says on the tin. Every sort of social media post that we put out, we have to have this we have to bear this in mind for what we want to put out through our copy, through our imagery, through our videos, on what we actually do to make it a better place. I know that's a bit sort of centric to what we do, you know, trying to big ourselves up, but equally, you know, we need to sell ourselves and show the role that we play, because we do invest and do support a wide range of really key projects in the West Midlands that most people wouldn't know about. So we want to sort of sell that and show that to people and sort of help them gain a little bit more insight into our work. And equally, they're taxpayers at the end of the day. They fund our organisation, so they should know what that money's going towards as well. So that golden thread now sits across all the content that we try to achieve. And yeah, I think it has worked to sort of lift the quality of the content by just sort of giving people a bit more focus when they're putting together their work. So we drafted up some content pillars for what we do. We borrowed Brandy Random from Innocence Movies, actually, so it was interesting that they were the first presentation today. But we split it into three content areas. So we've got Branded Random, Impact, and News and Events. So for us, first of all, for Branded Random, it was maximising current trends. Now, that isn't just jumping on whatever the first trending topic on Twitter is, or that isn't jumping on the next thing that's been big on TikTok every day. We understand as an organisation we're going to come across naff if we try and jump on every single trend. And equally, you haven't got the resources all the time to constantly sit there day in, day out and look at different trends. And the advice that we've got from other people as well is that actually it's kind of counterproductive to you if you look like you're just jumping from topic to topic. So instead, we just look at what is the key talking points, and I'll display that coming up in a little while. But I think it's important because it shows that you're relevant, and it shows that you're actually real people who know what's going on in the world and know what people are talking about. You know, if we look like we're disconnected, then you know, what's the point in what we're doing? And obviously, a key thing for Branded Random as well is positivity and championing the West Midlands region. And again, I'll show you some examples of that as well. But that's a lot around sort of just the lighter side of life of what it is to live in the West Midlands, what it is to live and work here, the funny slices of life that you get, and just being a champion of the big things that are happening, such as Joe Lycett's TV show being filmed at the Bond in Digbeth. You know, really championing that as a fantastic thing that's putting Birmingham and the West Midlands on again the national stage, and being positive about that. And we've had some really nice engagement off some of the content that we've done around that. And again, part of Branded Random is really community engagement and social listening, because we want to build our communities. We recognise that our engagement has been low because we just didn't talk to people and we didn't interact with anyone. We put a piece of content out there and then it was done. Whereas actually, you know, this is a massive key part of what we need to be doing, and we needed to find the time to do it. So we're really working now on sort of daily having a rota in terms of us going out and interacting with people through Orlo and natively as well. So Impact is more around sort of visual storytelling and human interest case studies. So we've got so many, we're a very strategic organisation. We fund big projects. We're talking about multi-million-pound projects all the time, but actually where we differ from a council is we don't always work on the ground level with residents day in, day out. So we had to try to find the human interest case studies and the visual storytelling that would kind of bring some of those elements to life, so that we just had some human faces and people and that are fronting our content, because it was all very well and good putting them there front and centre day in, day out, but you could be there 5 or 6 times a week, and it's just not beneficial. So we needed to put more people in front of our audiences on social, and just again, it helps us show how we benefit the region. So a lot of the time we've gone out and filmed case studies with people who have retrofitted their homes and how it's cut their energy bills down, and the funding and support that they've had to do that. We've gone out and spoken to people who they've taken training courses that they never thought they would do. They were in office jobs, and now they work with an equine training provider that has got them into working with horses and their passion. And now they worked at the Grand National over earlier part of this year, and it was really fantastic to hear their story, and they brought it alive because we got to go down and film with them at their stables where they're now based, and it was just really fantastic, and it brought alive a campaign that we could have talked about in a multi-million pound sense, but it wouldn't have brought it alive for people who would just be passing by, scrolling along their feeds. So it's being proactive about the content, but also quality over quantity. We're not sending loads of posts out day in, day out. We're really trying to curate and think about what we would do, plan it out before we go and film it, so that we've got a good piece of quality content that can also be repurposed for the website, can work on social media, that we could clip up and do for shorts on stories and different things as well. And then finally, news and events, because we can't get away from the fact that we've got to drive interest in the projects that we're announcing weekly. So, but it's also trying to look at ways that we produce news content a little bit differently, rather than just sticking a link out to the press release on our website. Can we tell it in a way that's engaging? There's some fantastic people like Victoria Derbyshire on TikTok, who use green screens to talk around a story that she's been presenting on the news that day. And we've tried to look at that as well in the ways that we try and do it. So we've also borrowed a little bit from sort of Joe and Lab Bible on some of the way that they do their Instagram posts, because it's really interesting how they do explainers through carousels with short clips in between, and it's a really engaging way for us to tell our story in quick impactful ways, rather than trying to always put out a 2 or 3 minute video that is difficult to film enough content to make it of a good quality, and also to actually just sit and edit. I don't know about you guys, it's difficult to sit there and edit a video for 3 minutes in length with all the cutaway material and subtitle it with all your bells and whistles on it as well, and that can take 2 or 3 days when sometimes you just don't have that. So we've looked at different ways that we can try and work, and we've got a closer relationship now also with our press and media team. So whereas, for instance, they just used to send a press release out sometimes and we weren't aware, now we've got that working relationship where we know what's coming up on their agenda, and we can hopefully have a little bit more lead time into what we can be doing. So other key changes, we've also, I've touched on social listening. It is a key part of our daily schedule now, to monitor conversations across our channels and understand the topics that people are talking about, being engaged with, and why, really. SEO is increasingly an important area for us to be looking at as well. TikTok really has driven SEO over the last 2-3 years, however long. It's a main channel now. A lot of people are using it to search for how-to guides, much like you would have done over YouTube. So it was important for us to try to answer questions with our content as well. So we're now, we've shortly to be launching a blogging functionality with our website that will allow our teams to talk a little bit more openly about the projects that they're working on. We're working on strategies with them on finding the key questions through search that people are looking for, so that they've got topic areas to write from, because a lot of these people, they're passionate about their what they are working in, but for Joe Public, it's difficult to understand all the terminology or the jargon, and we've got to work on ways that we can bring that with a bit more plain English. So we're working with different tools now on looking at sort of SEO and how that can drive traffic to our website, but also encourage engagement on our social as well. And with UGC, this is something I used to do when I was at the newspaper, actually. It was a kind of key part for us, sourcing videos from the scene of car crashes, the scene of big fires, and trying to source UGC was kind of key to that, because we just didn't have the resources to go out and physically photograph and be at the scene of all these incidents anymore. So that was where I sort of wanted us to try to find some more interesting content that we could feed off. So we for instance, when William and Kate come and visited the jewellery quarter earlier in the year, it was our intention to actually go down and take some pictures down there, but due to other things we just couldn't make it. But we were lucky that so many people had put pictures on there, and it was a really positive story. Everyone had sort of been window twitching and stuff on their lunch breaks, and sort of finding out what was going on in and around the jewellery quarter while they were going to get a sarnie. And so it was fantastic to just be able to source some really nice, good quality images from people who were happy to oblige because we gave them credits on there, and it's much like, I always think of it as like, you know, it used to be nice when you got your face on the front of the paper, you know, when you were at school for your school sports day or something like that, and your mum would buy loads of copies. So it's a bit like that, really. And people really value that, and kind of, you know, it builds that two-way conversation as well, because they're really grateful for you showing their work, and equally you can be feeding in with them. And we also had a great piece of content where we just managed to source some video of the Blues fans when they were meeting Tom Brady in the pub when he come down and visited them a few weeks ago. I'm a baggy, so I'm like I'm against all the Blues and that, but definitely it was a fantastic video for us because it showed people out in the region really positive and enjoying what is a massive event for Birmingham City, and we were able to share in that a little bit as well, and that was fantastic for us. Tone of voice has been a key part of us as well, so we've done a lot of work sort of examining our audiences and our key influencers around the region, and we try now to look at the way that we're posting content so that it marries up to these key topics. So it does go on a little bit further than this, but this is our main area. So we want to be passionate, proud, down to earth, knowledgeable and creative. So we really try to have a really active persona on social media, and as if we're living here and working here ourselves, which we obviously do. So one of our key projects and campaigns recently was Aussie the Bull. You might have walked past Aussie as he's just standing proudly in New Street Station now. It's obviously one of the key features that drew national attention when it was part of the opening ceremony for the Commonwealth Games. We were working in partnership with Network Rail, and the Mayor was a big driver in finding a place so that Aussie wasn't just sitting in a car park anymore, and was actually in a public area. And between us, we worked with the Mayor's team in order to create a whole campaign about, you know, driving reach for our naming of the bull. That was a really big thing for us. We wanted to kind of engage with people and just have some fun with it a little bit as well. So we had 30,000 votes with Aussie coming out on top, which we were really pleased about. There was a fantastic pick-up with engagement, and just it created a really great talking point for us, and we were able to then feed that with the media team as well and get people in front of cameras and get the Mayor on Breakfast TV and other places as well. So it really worked between us and the media team in order to sort of drive the interest in it, and thankfully we got Aussie to pick up a couple of our posts as well, which was fantastic to us, just simply by reaching out to his teams and reaching out to tagging him as well, and it was fantastic. So the Aussie name reveal itself, they actually did a big sort of revealing on Breakfast TV, on BBC Breakfast, and we managed to source the video of him speaking and saying how fantastic it was that the bull was being named after him. And once we'd sourced that video, we obviously pushed it out on our channels, and it's been by far and away one of the best pieces of content we've done, certainly this year. Fantastic amount of video views and reach across all our channels, and really drove people that had no interest and no understanding of what we are to us, and we've really gained some traction off the back of that. We did some posts on hide and seek with a bull, so the bull was obviously under wraps, under a very strategic cloth that was positioned in New Street Station for a couple of weeks, and we just had some fun with trying to play hide and seek with people, but not really getting away with it. And again, had some fantastic impressions off that as well. And then when we went down and covered the launch itself, obviously more than 20,000 video views of the launch, despite it being broadcast live on TV, despite all of the local media channels, Birmingham Live, Express and Star, Midlands Today, obviously, being there as well. But it was really great that we got a share of that as well. And also, it was big at the time, the Kardashian meme around Travis and the pregnancy announcement at the concert. We had a little bit of fun with that as well, saying Travis, the bull's name is Aussie. And that really worked. We're really looking at using meme content, especially on Facebook, as a key area. And that really worked for us on and eclipsed our normal reach as well. We also had a bit of fun. I know Barbie was alluded to earlier, but we also did our own version of Barbie Bull. So obviously just a Photoshop of the bull down there, but it really got people talking. The shares on it were excellent and well above what we would normally expect, and achieved a 19,000 reach on Facebook alone, which is again many times more than we would normally be achieving. So it really had some fun, and it had some nice pickup with different channels as well outside of us. So the key learnings for us, I think, it is being able to have a bit more fun on our channel. So we're a public sector body. There is that assumption that we have got to be serious because we're talking about taxpayers' money. We're talking about funding key projects, and we don't want to sort of seem to be having too much fun when obviously there's big news, obviously even in the last week or two about funding and how organisations are structured going forward. So it's a difficult balancing that. But when we try to approach it with our strategic managers, but then our directors and executive team, it was about saying, well, if you want engaged channels and you want people to have some interest in what you've got to say, and when we've got big announcements that we want to shout about, then it needs to be engaging all the time in the softer content, in the content that's fun, in the content that we would be just speaking about in the office or on a Teams call anyway. So why aren't we confident enough to put that out ourselves? And I think we did get the buy-in, thankfully, from people to say that they were comfortable with us being a little bit more relaxed and giving us the control to post content out that we felt was really important for our audiences and more relatable and engaging. And I think it has paid off, and we're going to go further. We're at very much the infancy. We've in fact only just sort of come to the end of drawing up our strategy, so the implementation stage is sort of over the next 12 months really. So getting to the support of SLT is important, and I think we just back that up with the reporting and the evaluation that we did. We didn't have anything to show them of why it would be really good initially, so why would they buy into it? But when you can show that you've got fantastic reach on Barbie Bull, or you can show that you've had really good reach on various memes that you've had, or just interesting ways that you've presented video from a station opening or something like that, then you really see, and they get interested in it rather than just them wanting a picture and the standard video with a talking head from the mayor standing outside a sign of the train station. So I think it's just about evolving that. It's never going to happen overnight, but we've worked hard on showing showing our workings essentially for how it's worked for us. And as I said, key point for us was regular evaluation. So we know that the stuff hasn't worked. Even some of the best ideas and stuff. Even stuff that I've done recently, it hasn't worked. It's just sunk on the channel for some reason, and that might be because that we're still curating and building our audiences a bit more, especially on Instagram. We've got a small audience compared to a lot of even other councils, but it's all a work in progress, and we've got to have a bit of faith that we can keep trialling it, keep evaluating it, keep testing it, and trying to sort of see where it goes in the future. So yeah, that's me. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on X. So if you want to hook me out, then thanks. But yeah, hope you've got some takeaways from it anyway. Thanks.
Yeah, and is there any questions now for Andy? Obviously, he'll be sticking around today and he'll be on the panel later as well. So if you do have any questions.
That was really great. I'm from Greater Manchester Combined Authority, so that felt a bit like a therapy session. And I think at the beginning you talked a bit about how people had different channels and they'd gone off and do their own thing, and we get that, where almost if we have a campaign, they automatically want to have their own Twitter account and the Facebook account. We're trying to stop that. Have you had any success in terms of trying to bring it all back onto the West Mids main account?
Yeah, so we have that same issue almost weekly, really, with projects wanting their own social media channel. So, we have to have sometimes not the easiest conversations, but we've basically said, look, we've got a curated audience that really work on our channels already, a big existing audience that you're just not going to reach if you've got a startup channel. You're going to have to resource it heavily, probably have a big budget behind it as well to gain any sort of audience over the first 12 months. So it's a difficult conversation where our overall comms strategy as an organisation lists a series of themes throughout the year. So it lists environment, so we're going to have a big environment month, we're going to have a big transport month, we're going to have a big skills month. So we try to ensure that each of the areas and each of the projects have a slice of that cake, essentially. So saying that you're going to be able to get regular content out on our channels, and we're going to have a real focus and a themed time for you as well, so that it feels for the project managers and officers that they really have a sort of, you know, a sort of big showcase for their projects. I think they see their own channels as sort of being their showcase and the place that they can own, really, and our channels aren't like that. But it was kind of trying to sell them, well, we've got this already ready-made audience for you that we're hoping to grow. We're going to have a big month where we're going to be really talking about the key initiatives that your project is vital to. So, you know, just feed into that, have a look at how it's worked, and then we take it from there, really. It isn't an easy, we're always going to have that, but I think it really worked for us, sort of theming our months and then allowing them to say, well, you know, we've got a housing month, but just because you're an environment project, you might still have a really interesting topic where you've had gardens transformed on a new housing estate, so you can have a piece of that as well. And it's sort of just trying to marry that up a little bit, but it isn't easy.
Yeah, hi. I'm from Lincolnshire, and we haven't yet been blessed with a combined authority.
Oh, you think
but we've got 7 districts and various unitaries and counties. How do you find the crossover or conflict between your extant councils, effectively?
There is some crossover, because naturally they'll want to speak about particular projects and take ownership of certain initiatives that they're delivering that we funded. So there can be conflict, but I think we are trying to get to a position where we have better dialogue with the communications teams themselves. It's key as a combined authority, that's in the name. We're meant to be combined, so we're meant to have a good working relationship with all our LAs and our so the way that we've tried to do it is we now sort of have an account management system for every campaign, where we'll draw certain expertise from all the different areas. So for instance, stakeholder management. So it isn't just a digital team reaching out to our LAs. We'll actually have someone with a bit of stakeholder experience to go out to them to speak to their project officers, who will feed back to their communications teams, and hopefully build a bit more trust that we're not trying to steal their limelight, and equally, we're trying to work in partnership with them. So it is my ambition eventually to actually have a content planning communications group, a digital group across all our LAs. I want to sort of get that set up over the next 12 months, where we have a bit of a regular meeting and we feed into each other, and we try and work together on some of the softer content as well, because you've got to be you've got to try to work in partnership with people. But also we supply content to them. We go out and film. We're always welcome to share our content with them, so long as it's reciprocal. And we just work project by project and hope that we've built those relationships.
Best of luck with it.
Yeah.
How do you... Obviously, there's a lot of impactful stories around everything. So I work at a college, and obviously our students have lots of stories, but we struggle to get that content from either the departments or the students themselves. How have you had anything like that, where there's a story out there but you just can't grab it, and how do you overcome that?
Yeah, a lot of the time. I mean, that's my background in story creation and trying to hunt out stories as a journalist, and it's been a bit of a difficult sort of process. We have business partners essentially in our communications team that work with different areas of the organisation. So we have one, I personally myself work with all our colleagues that deliver health and wellbeing projects. So it's about building those personal relationships so that they feel that they actually sort of get some value out of communications. Obviously, there's sometimes they might have had bad experiences with us. We haven't supplied what they've wanted in a timely fashion, so there's a bit of mistrust, and they've gone out to third-party organisations, to agencies to develop their comms work. But we're really trying to stop that. So the way that I've done it is just being on the meetings essentially, and go. I mean, it's difficult with in a college and an academic setting, because I can understand they want to take ownership of it and they're really passionate about it, but then you've got to distill that story so that people without that understanding can get a grasp of it. But so they might be a bit funny around how you break down their wonderful paper into a digestible story, or work with a student who's done a fantastic sort of project, and you've got to tell that to a different audience. So it isn't easy, but I just sat in on the meetings essentially and sat there and said, look, what stories have you got? You obviously, tap into the ego in us all, you've got a big project that you want to talk about, or you're a student who's done a fantastic project. Come to us and talk. I think being, even though I'm in a digital world, I think face-to-face is as much important. So it's kind of finding out your key people in your different areas and reaching out to them, introducing yourself and saying, I'm here. Well, this is an example of some of the things that we've done in the past. Is there anything that you've got that could really work for us? So it takes time. I'd love for it to happen overnight, but you will get there with it, I think.
Thank you.
Okay.
Don't want to fall down. I work in a primary school, so we're kind of totally limited in how much we can post or what we can post because of GDPR and all that. Yeah. And we post all our celebrations and all those kind of things, but it's getting that engagement from other sort of industries and having that link. So it's trying to build that up. And I was wondering what more can we do?
So we are trying to differentiate our channels per audience now. So we're very much targeting our stakeholders and businesses through our LinkedIn page. We're looking at more lifestyle content and slice of life and celebrating the West Midlands through Instagram. We're looking at our Twitter, our X being our main news area where we put content out, so that we've got different, so that we've curated those audiences on the different channels, so that we're not just trying to go out. So I don't know what channels you've got.
We've got X and LinkedIn and YouTube at the moment.
Yeah, so it might be a case that you want to trial a little bit of that, where you don't think of just posting directly onto those areas. So if you've got different businesses that you want to work with, or you want to reach out to, do a little showcase piece of content on, the sort of, the 5 key things that we've done this year, for instance, or something like that, if you're looking to bring someone in, and then actually sort of finding some of your key influencers and the people that are big on LinkedIn. So you could even tag Andy Street and people like that, to be honest, really. You've got to be mindful about how many people you're tagging, because if you tag too many and they don't interact with your post, it brings it down. But equally, what I would do is start to curate your audience, so make Facebook your real community, where you do lots of children and you do lots of sort of I know you're limited with sometimes what images you can send out, but if you've got parental permissions and things, or you could certainly do day in the lives with your favourite teacher, and things like that, and make that content relatable and shareable on Facebook, and then do a lot of your news announcements on your Twitter, and then your stakeholder work where you're reaching out to businesses who you want to attract funding from, and do it on there with some maybe thought leadership pieces. So getting one of your senior management team to sort of write a regular piece on what it's like for the challenges for schools at the moment. Hopefully you're not one of the ones that have issues with the concrete and things like that at the moment. But equally, just they could theme themselves, and it doesn't need to be too onerous. I think people always worry, they're like, when comms come round, they're like, oh gosh, they're going to ask me to do something. Actually, just say, we want 400 words, 500 words. What can you give us on something that's really interesting? And I think you'll hopefully find your channels, grow a little bit organically.
Just conscious of time, so we'll probably do one more, but Andy will be around today, so definitely ask him.
Yeah, thank you. It was a really good presentation. I just wanted to ask about because you said about your team, your channel managers.
Yes.
So I work for a South West Police Force. We're quite a smaller team than you, like a lot of impact impacts as well. And we've established like channel leads in our team, but we've been advised by SLT not to push this and not to be exclusive channel leads. We need to be experts on all platforms and maybe have one person as the name, but not a manager. Would you maybe suggest pushing for managers, or do you think it really depends on where you work?
I think the way that we work is similar to the leads in terms of we all do still have to produce content that goes out across all our channels, because obviously our campaigns demand certain treatments on different platforms. But I would push it because you want to, I mean, we are going to be in a system where we rotate the channel managers anyway over either quarterly or 6 monthly, something like that, in order to give people just a chance at working on each individual one anyway. But you want someone to really get interested in Facebook, for instance, and really understand what's really good content on there at the particular moment, so you can maybe marry up on there and really work. So we went down to the Ministry of Justice and we had a great workshop with the team down there on how they did it, and they were very much around having set channel managers, that they are the guardians of that channel. Yes, obviously people produce content for you, but the benefits they found from it were that they basically just sort of had a better guide on what was really working on that channel. So they were really sort of, scrolling the news feeds, really doing the social listening on what was really working for them, and it improved the content, because that channel manager was able to say to someone in the team who had produced a suite for a campaign, that's not quite how it would work, we can just tweak it because this is really working well and this is popping off on TikTok or something like that at the moment, So I think having, and it breeds that little bit of sort of investment in your team as well, for them to say, oh yeah, I work on Facebook, I work on LinkedIn, I'm really proud of working on there. So I think I would push more for it, because I think that you'll find that hopefully the content creation and the sort of the management of what goes out is improved.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Cool, yeah. As I said, Andrew will be around today anyway, so please do feel free to ask him some questions. And of course, he'll be on the panel later. No, what I loved about everything you're doing at West Mids is it's kind of like happening now, which is so nice. I think often we think making some of these changes will take years and years and years to pay off, but you will find that making small changes can kind of adapt what you're doing now already. Cool, so I'm not going to make you do this task right now. This is more a task that I want you to almost take away and really, really think about. I think it's important to remember that not all changes need to happen just when something's going wrong or if you don't feel like something's quite right. It's always good to kind of check back in on this and just see if you're working with the time. So I think we do this often. What concerns you about making a change to your existing strategy? I think that's something we're really, really used to doing. Then start to ask yourself, what is the risk of not changing your existing strategy and way of working? So try to start seeing if that's actually outweighing what you're scared to change, because that's the only way you're going to start seeing a difference. So even if stuff's going well, see what more changes you can make, because maybe it can be even better. So what now? What to do with all the information you've heard today? So I've pulled out a couple of quotes, one being a third of marketers struggles to secure an appropriate budget for their social strategy. And nearly a half of marketers say that trying to align their social media campaigns with company goals is their biggest struggle. So I think these are two things that, if you relate to those, you can easily start to change by just making those small tweaks. So some of this might be really obvious to some of you, but I still don't think there's any harm in making sure this becomes something that you are kind of looking at more often than not. For example, when I worked at Virgin Trains for 5 years as their social content manager, we built this amazing strategy that started to work really well for us. We had a really good tone of voice, and then Avanti West Coast took over the West Coast Main Line, and everything we knew, even though it was going really well, we knew we had to make a different, we had to change who we were so that they had some brand awareness. So we built this new strategy, it was going really well, and then COVID happened, and suddenly everything that you've built doesn't make sense anymore because you can't ask people to travel in a pandemic. So it is sort of about, acknowledging sometimes that even stuff if it's working well, let's look at revisiting that and make it work for the communities and what they need at that time. So create a realistic goal. I think this goes back to, I know with Helena talking earlier, how we all want to, have these great posts that go out and they're all really, really funny. It does need to be realistic to the audience you have and what you're trying to achieve. So come up with a goal that makes sense to you and your communities. Make it broad. In other words, what's your reason for being on social? And there's no right answer to that. I think it will be really, really different sector to sector and even business to business. But what I mean by broad is, is it that you want to increase brand awareness, drive sales, grow your brand audience, drive web traffic, that kind of thing. Keep it broad to begin with, as that's most likely the way that you're going to be able to relate it back to the business goals. Obviously, how you do that on social will then be very, very different. Goals do encourage you to pay attention to data. And what I mean by data isn't necessarily how many likes this is getting. It's actually really trying to understand where you're seeing levels go up and down on that kind of thing. Data is what obviously drives change. So build a strategy for your community. I think there's been a theme today, and I think people are starting to acknowledge that social media really is, it's your community. That's not something that is only for, local gov to kind of have. Everything should feel like a community. Your followers should be your community. And engage, demand and trust starts with communication. So build your strategy around engaging with customers. So whether that is user-generated content, I think at Virgin we created a whole piece of content and a whole content pillar around the voice of the train. So we just made our train tweet all the time instead of us. And we use that by getting loads of user-generated content of train enthusiasts who take photos of our trains every day. And it just made that a really easy piece of content that people loved. But something to keep in mind there is that's when you're going to have to start talking to each other. So if you're in a marketing team and you want to build your strategy around communication, you're going to have to involve, if you've got a customer service team, making sure you're both aligned on that, talk to each other and learn from each other. Develop a distinct social tone of voice. I think this is a really great way as well to kind of gatekeep social and make sure it makes sense to, as Andy was saying before, people love to say, can you just social this? Well, actually, if it doesn't align with the way you talk and how you communicate with your customers, it's not going to be right for social. So it really helps you to kind of gatekeep your social channels, but also don't underestimate the power of how that makes you stand out against your competitors as well. And then finally, encourage employees. So encourage employees to share your content. I've previously built whole LinkedIn strategies that are purely around getting different types of people around the business to post things in a different way. Everyone's going to have a different perspective and something interesting that they can share that relates to their audiences on there. Don't make all the work just come from your brand channels. I think there's so much value in actually getting the people who work for you involved in that, but also encourage employees to share trends with you. We spoke about how, it's so challenging to kind of jump on every trend, but there's no way one person could be responsible for that. So make sure you're giving employees the space to actually come to you with ideas as well, because they'll often notice things that are quite niche and quite cool. And then finally, monitor that success. So start to document the impact your work is having on the wider business. Of course, your KPIs will help with that. But this is where not just paying attention to your own data, but tap into other areas as well. So pay attention to CRM data. Are you finding that actually a lot of conversations are starting to come from social media, or a lot more link clicks to your website starting to come from social? Try to gather that, because that can really, really help you when you are trying to prove the value of social to other areas of the business. Highlight relevant metrics. This is also where I'm saying, you've got to make your metrics relevant to somebody who doesn't work in social. So often, sometimes going to somebody and going, oh, we had so-and-so impressions, it means nothing to somebody who's not in social. So make it tangible, show comparisons, be able to say, well, actually, if you're tagging your messages in your inbox, for example, look how often this has come up this month, and look at the sentiment against that, and look at the volume. That's really great ways to help somebody who's not even in social really understand how important it is that you're getting the kind of resources to do it better. And highlight both increases and decreases. So that's highlighting the negatives as well as the positives. Negatives also can make things change. And then finally, regularly conduct market research. So, look at your competitors, what they're doing. Show the importance of a strong social presence. I always kind of scour to look at, reports online for stuff that's trending, benchmarking reports. So I pulled out some stats just as an example. So 55% of consumers learn about brands via social media. That's so important to have that kind of information. And if I make it a bit more sector focused, 41% of people said social media affects their choice of doctor, hospital and medical facility. 32% of railway customers want a response on social within 30 minutes. Knowing this kind of information, and even if you're getting it yourself, it can be so helpful to help you kind of adapt what you're doing on social. Cool. So I wanted to end that piece with some 2024 considerations. Again, things that I think will be trending come next year. Video dominance being a big one. I don't think anybody here isn't aware that video's not going anywhere. TikTok's not going anywhere. I think many of us thought it would die out. It hasn't, sadly. But we are putting a huge focus on this on our roadmap as well. So video dominance is up there. Social influencer evolution. I think people started to hate influencers at some point when we were using them, and I think for good reason. It often didn't make sense why this influencer was talking about a particular product. I think we've started to acknowledge when it is just an ad and not somebody saying something quite on brand for them. But micro and nano influencers, they're basically just much smaller influencers, but they have a highly engaged audience. That's how you build trust. Personalised experiences. I know for many of you, it's so hard because you've got such a range of an audience. There's lots of different people you're trying to target based on their needs. So making everything a bit more personalised and using the AI tools that are available to you to do that. Social messaging apps as marketing channels. I think this has kind of come about particularly with all the uncertainty of X, which I think we will be talking about a bit later as well. But moving more into that WhatsApp and SMS space to communicate with customers. Social media and listening and sentiment analysis, I know we've been over that. And then the last two others sort of quite interesting. I think people are way more interested now in kind of sustainability and social responsibility. So where you can talk about that on social, I do think that will be really engaging. And finally, data, privacy and trust as well. Cool. So that is it from me and this session. I think we've probably run out of time for questions just now, but I am around all day. So is your CSM. Please speak to your CSMs about your social strategy and any challenges you have. We really like to know this stuff. It means that we can help you and tailor what you're doing on Orlo or as on social in general. A lot of us have previously come from social backgrounds, so we do just love to chat about it anyway.